10 episodes. I keep saying that number out loud like it will eventually feel smaller. It doesn't. We started with a question. Why doesn't anyone have this conversation openly, specifically for women? And we have spent 9 episodes answering it. Market cycles, luxury principles, generational wealth, the female advantage, divorce, probate, the great wealth transfer. Stories from the front line, 45 years at the table. Today, the finale. I want to do something different. I want to step back from the frameworks and ask, what does all of this actually mean? What have we built together? And what do we want for women who showed up for every episode of it?
I have been in this industry, as she said, for 45 years. I have never done anything quite like this. This season has been the most honest conversation I've had about this work in my professional life. Not because the content is new. I have known these things for decades. Because saying it out loud to an audience of women who came specifically for it felt different than any single client conversation I have ever had. I am grateful, genuinely.
Welcome to episode 10. I am Natalie Francine.
And I'm Alexis Nassif. This is Wealth, War, and Real Estate.
Let's begin. I want to pull the season together because each episode built on the last, and I think the full architecture is worth seeing clearly before we close it. Episode 1 through 4, the foundation, the origin story, the market cycle, framework, the luxury standard, the wealth building mechanics. We gave you the tools before we sent you into battle. Episode 5 through 8, the battles, the female advantage, divorce, probate, the great wealth transfer, the specific legal and financial moments where most women are walking in unprepared. Not anymore. Episodes 9 and 10, the synthesis, the real stories that prove the patterns, and today, the vision for what comes next.
The architecture was intentional. You cannot navigate a probate proceeding effectively without understanding market cycles. You cannot make a smart decision about the marital home in a divorce without the wealth building framework underneath it. Every episode was designed to give you 2 things, something that you can use immediately and something that will serve you for decades. The immediate thing was the action items. The decade-long thing was the framework, the way of thinking about real estate as a wealth-building legacy, creating battle, surviving to, not a transaction.
If you listened to all 10 episodes and did nothing else, you think about real estate differently than you did before episode 1. That shift is the most valuable thing we could have given you. What surprised you about making this season? The honest version.
The clarity of the need. I knew women were underserved in this space, but building this show, structuring these episodes, preparing to talk to an audience I couldn't see, made the gap more vivid than it had ever been. There are millions of women making real estate and wealth decisions right now in the dark, not because the information doesn't exist, because it has never been organized and delivered specifically for them. I thought I understood the need. Making the season showed me I had only begun to.
And something else, I could see it in the last few episodes.
Saying these things out loud, naming the industry's failures specifically, naming the predatory actors, naming the judicial wars women have been walking into unprepared, was more personal than I anticipated. I have known these truths for 45 years. I have held them in client meetings and private conversations, and rooms I was barely allowed into. Saying them on a show felt like a decision, like there is no longer any reason to hold us back. I am 78 years old. I have been holding this back since I was 25. I am done with that. For sure, I'm done.
For me, the response, before we launched, before episode 1, it was in front of any listeners, the conversations I was having with women in our network about what this show would cover, the hunger for it, the relief that it existed, the number of women who said, I have been waiting for this. That is not a marketing story. That is a genuine signal about how underserved this audience has been. And it changed how I show up in every transaction I've been in since we started recording. We named the war at the beginning of this season. I want to close it by naming what you now know about it. The war is real, not a metaphor. Every piece of real estate you own will eventually encounter a legal proceeding. Sale, estate, divorce, inheritance. The question is not whether it happens. The question is whether you are the most prepared person in the room when it does.
After 10 episodes, you understand probate, hopefully. The timeline, the cost, the carrying burden, the family conflict that surfaces when there is no structure and no communication. You understand divorce, the 4 options for the marital home, the equity calculation, the investment property trap, the danger of fighting for a house you cannot carry alone. You understand the wealth transfer, the 70% depletion rate, the family conversation that prevents litigation, the trust that replaces 18 months of court with 90 days of clean administration.
And you understand the weapons, the research others dismiss as overthinking, the patience markets and adversaries underestimate, the empathy that reads what the other side actually needs and uses that knowledge in the negotiation. These are not soft skills. In the judicial war, they are battle skills, and you have all of them.
The judicial war favors the prepared. It always has. The industry spent decades making sure women weren't prepared. The gap is closing. You are among the first to have closed it.
I want to speak directly to the women listening right now. You came to this show for a reason. Maybe a specific decision you were facing. Maybe a general sense that there was a conversation you weren't being included in. Maybe someone sent you the first episode and you kept listening because something in it felt true. Whatever brought you here, you are not the same person who started episode 1. The frameworks you carry, the questions you know to ask, the professionals you now know how to evaluate, these are real. They will serve you in the transactions ahead, in the legal proceedings you will navigate, and in the family conversations you will have.
What I want for you is specific. I want you to have the professional who is working specifically for your outcome, the attorney who looks left and right beyond their lane, the financial advisor who is not also managing the assets they're advising you about, the real estate professional who asks you the 20-year question before showing you a single property. I want you to have the trust in place before the legal proceedings begins. The title properly held, the family conversation that has happened while everyone who needs to be part of is still present. And I want you to use the advantage you were born with. The research, the patience, the empathy, the long horizon. Stop apologizing for it.
I want to say something I don't say enough in this work, and I want you to enjoy it. Real estate, at its best, is the physical expression of what you are building for your family. The home that holds the memories, the rental property that sent a child to college, the estate that your grandchildren will navigate with, the family conversation you had decades earlier because you listened to a show that told you to have it. That is not a burden. That is a privilege. It's yours. Season 2, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Because we built a foundation this season, and the foundation has more rooms than we opened.
I want to go deeper on the specific legal strategies the best prepared families are using right now. Not the general trust conversation, the specific structures, dynasty trusts, the ways that legal protection tools available to the very wealthy are increasingly accessible at a much wider range of wealth levels. This is season 2 material.
I want to bring in voices from the specific markets and specific legal proceedings. A probate attorney, a family law judge, a forensic accountant who works on contested estate valuations. The framework we built this season is universal. The execution is local and specific. Season 2 gets specific.
And more stories. Episode 9 was the episode I most wanted to record. The front lines, that actual decisions of actual people, that is where the real education lives. Season 2 should have more of that.
The listeners who made it to episode 10 have earned the advanced curriculum. That is season 2. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Tell one woman who needs the show about it before you close this episode. That share might be the thing that changes her outcome in the proceeding she doesn't know is coming yet.
I want to speak directly to the woman who has been listening. I don't know your specific situation. I don't know if you are navigating a divorce proceeding right now, or if that possibility feels distant. I don't know if you are managing inherited property this year, or if your parents are still alive and the estate planning conversation is something you keep meaning to have. What I know is this: you came to this show because you understood that there was a conversation you were not being included in. And you were right. There was. For 45 years, I sat at tables where women like you were not present, not because they weren't qualified, because they hadn't been told they were allowed in the room. And the people in that room benefited from their absence. The industry benefited from their absence. I'm telling you now, You are allowed in that room, not as a guest, as the person who owns the real estate on the table, who holds the equity being negotiated, who will be their or divorcing spouse or the estate administrator when the proceeding comes. That room is yours. Walk in prepared. Ask the questions that make the other side uncomfortable. Hold your position when the pressure is to give it up. Take the time to process that allows you rather than the time someone else is trying to force on you. You have the advantage. You have always had the advantage. Now use it.
10 episodes. Thank you for every single one. I am Natalie Francine.
I'm Alexis Nassif, 45 years of this work. This season has been the most important conversation of my professional life. Thank you for being here for it. This is Wealth, War, and Real Estate.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See that attorney.
And accountant.
Don't forget. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.